I think more or less everyone has a piece of test equipment that they know will always work and is always going to be reliable. I know I have a number of things that I know that I can switch on and they're going to work. This HP54645A is one of them. There's a couple of other pieces of equipment like the audio analyzer, the HP54645A will always work, and a couple of maybe the more modern bits of gear. This scope particularly has always worked well. This is an old scope from work that was scrapped because the switches had packed up and just needed the switch contact repairs. These carbon tracks had all sort of worn away, and you can buy a pen to replace them or repair them, and I actually did this with silver paint. But I went to use this scope beginning of this week, and it's packed up. Now you can see clearly here the display all looks like it's working and everything's fine, but let me just show you what it is. If I call up channel 1, we're in XY mode at the moment, so we've got movement to the left and right, so channel 2 should move this line up and down, but you see all it's doing is twitching. So the problem is there's a problem with this encoder. Now I don't know why that suddenly failed. These are quite prone to failing, these front panels. You might not have heard of this, but I did a video about 5-6 years ago of the previous model scope to this that had an impact on the front panel, and a couple of the tracks are broken, and I think that's actually what's wrong with this. Now there are a couple of self-tests you can do on these scopes just to prove that all the switches are working and things like that. I'm just going to go through that now. Utility, I think it's service menu. Just trying to remember what it is. Select test menu, keyboard. Okay, here we go. We've got a layout of our keyboard. So basically any button I press will show up on the display as a button being pressed. Let me just zoom in a little bit so you can see a bit easier. But we've clearly got a problem with probably this potentiometer here. So let's go through 1, 2, 3. You can see the highlighted buttons 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. Pot left. You can see an arrow, right arrow. It shows both ways. I'm going to zoom in a bit more so you can see a bit clearer. Okay, this pot, which is an encoder, that pot encoder, 1, 2, 3. This pot left and right. This pot. Now you noticed, you see it shows left and right, but I actually only turned it in one direction. So let's start this utility again and go back to this pot. Let me just run through the whole thing anyway. So all the other pots, left, right, that's highlighted correctly. Left, right, correct. 1, 2, 3. Left, right, correct. On, left, right. So there we go. And the soft keys 1, 2, 3. All the keys work. Okay, on that one on the top, the erase one. So that's clearly working fine. And hit run stop twice to end the program. So run stop. There we go. So clearly all the buttons are working except this button here. And we'll just confirm that again. And I'll just, because I moved it, did it quite quickly, I just want to show you what I did. So keyboard, I'm going to turn it, the keyboard, the position switch to the clockwise. So we're looking at this pot, this annunciator here. So I'm zooming in so you can see. So I'm turning the control right. That's correct. Turning it left, and it's showing it correct now. So let's try this one. Left, right. So I'm going to quit again. It looks like it's fixed itself. Let's just, unless there's another underlying problem. So run stop. Get out of this menu. Go back in again. Left. Correct. Right. Correct. Left. Right. Okay. This is making a fool of me and saying that it's actually working fine. So now it looks like, can I control the position? No, I can't. So that's interesting. That's even more interesting. Unless it looks to me like there's still a problem with that control. Even though it's going left and right, it's stuck in one position. Like when I'm turning it right, it looks like the pot's shorted to the left. So it's just ignoring whatever I do, and even though it's showing up as working okay, it doesn't seem to work. There are a couple of other tests I can do. I can do a DAC test, and that's just output measurements, but I'm not really that worried about that. There's a ROM test I can check. Test has passed. RAM test has passed. So I think we've got a problem with this keyboard control here, though it is passing here. Now I don't know what the hell's going on. The other thing I can do is quit out of this menu and just actually take it into an auto Cowl mode. And this is quite a useful mode to do it, actually. If you ever get into a problem where the scope doesn't seem to be working properly, this auto scale mode will just sort of reset the thing to sort of like a default setting. Unfortunately it's still in XY mode, so we need to take it out of XY mode. So we'll go, where are we? It's acquire, isn't it, for XY? So just got to go through. Don't often use XY on these scopes, that's the trouble. Display, normal, correct. Print utility. Come on, where's main? Okay, so we've got that position back, but we still can't adjust the position of our channel 2, and you can see our channel 2 trying to move there. So there's definitely a problem with this control. I don't exactly know what it is. It's funny because it actually passes the test. So we need to get this front panel off. That's auto test, or that test program didn't actually prove that this pot's not working, but it clearly isn't. That should be moving. That's off. That's on. Sometimes if you give them a flick, they'll go. And it could be just simply a bit of muck inside them. I'm not entirely sure how these rotary encoders work, but it's clearly at the moment not working. So let's get the back off and have a look. Okay, this is what I've done to replace the transistor that was faulty. These are SOT 123s, tiny little things to work with, and as you see, this transistor I've replaced here hasn't got the same orientation as it had originally. That's because the pinouts are different, but this is just an NPN transistor. It looks like all the switches just have the same transistor but used in a diode form. So basically, one of the base and the collector, I think, shorted together. So it's just basically a diode. But when it's using pots with the 3 connectors on it, it's actually using the 3 main junctions of the transistor. So I've got that transistor in, and it's luckily I could just turn it around by about 90 degrees, and the connections line up quite well. It's obviously not as tiny as it was before because the footprint's not designed for this pin-outer transistor. The transistors that were here, you can't see any numbers on them at all. That's as far as we're going to get zooming in on this camera, but it looks like there are any numbers on there. And the service manual for this scope, because it's sort of like a later HP stuff, they basically say display doesn't work or the controllers doesn't work, replace the board. So it's obviously an NPN transistor. It's got a different pin out to the sort of more modern transistors, but I'll pop that transistor in. Let's power this thing up. And in theory this should work really, because that transistor was definitely faulty. I don't know why it was faulty. I don't know if it was damp that's got to it or something. So let's power it up and see if we get any control over channel 2. Now I haven't mentioned here actually, and it's not so commonly known, but these devices, these old scopes, also have these hybrid chips in, like the Tektronix chips. And I actually forgot about these, and when I went to touch these, were burning hot to the touch. So be careful. These things need cooling as well. You're going to be running a short period. So channel 1, that works fine. Great, excellent. Channel 2 is working again. So it was that transistor. Let's get this thing back in the box and see and then we'll do a full keyboard function test on it. Alright, back together again. Seems to be okay. There is a couple of utilities on this scope that allow you to check various things, and one of them is actually check all the keyboards functioning correctly. So we'll just run through that just to make sure it's okay. And I think it's utility, service menu, I think service test, that's it, and display. Okay, maybe it's not, that's just alignment one, keyboard, that's the one. Okay, and it gives you this annotation of a blank display. I'm trying to get you so you can see. Light reflections are a problem. Go. Okay, so let's run through the tests now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You can see the 6 lights light up, and then we've got the pots. You should have a left arrow, right, left, right. 1, 2, 3. And then we've got the top ones. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1. Button, 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 button. Left, right, left, right, left, right. Left, right, left, right, left, right. Oh, we've done that button, that one. Left, right. There you go, it's passed. To quit out of these, just hit run stop 2 or more times. So we go 1, 2, 3. We're out of the menu. So that's the HP54645 scope repaired. These are nice scopes. They're not particularly high performance or high spec, and they weren't even in their day. But they're a nice digital scope for most things, and this is my sort of still really my favourite scope. Easy to use, easy to set up, easy to trigger. Just a really nice sort of not entry level, probably sort of middle of the range scope. But that's why I'm so keen on keeping it going. Anyway, thanks for watching, and more to come.